U.S. Senator Joni Ernst spent more than 2 decades as a member of the Iowa National Guard and also served some of that time stationed in Kuwait. She has spent the past decade as a member of the U.S. Senate. She can now combine her experience in the military with her time in politics to watch these continued U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran and think about what those mean. That is this week's focus on Inside Iowa Politics. I'll talk with the senator about why she supports these strikes on Iran and the sacrifice that they will mean for the American people. And we need to point out that we talked with the senator before the U.S. military confirmed the deaths of 4 members of a Des Moines unit. I know you have said that you've supported the president's decision for the strikes there. Explain why the United States, it's in our best interest to take out another country's leader like this. Why do we have to do this?
Yes, and just to clarify, what the United States is doing is striking military targets and targets that would be a threat to the United States of America. Israel is leading on taking out leadership, so that is their goal. But what I would say to Iowans and to the American people is that there was intelligence, and we will learn more about that intelligence that would pose a threat, showing a threat to the United States of America. And we have known for decades now that Iran is developing nuclear capabilities for nefarious purposes. Along with that, they have a track as well developing intercontinental ballistic missiles. These are not weapons of peace. These are weapons meant to strike the United States of America. And all along the way, they have been funding terrorist proxies, which are striking Americans here in the homeland, as well as those that are traveling abroad. We have seen thousands of Americans killed by this Iranian regime, primarily through the use of Iranian-developed weapons in Iraq, Afghanistan, other places like that. But these strikes, and again, I have said that I support the President of the United States, and I appreciate his decisive measures in this operation. Again, primary mission, take out the nuclear capabilities, stop the intercontinental ballistic missile development, and stop them from funding terrorist proxies which come after Americans.
The president last June had said that we had obliterated their nuclear capabilities. So had they rebuilt this quickly? Is it other stuff? What happened?
Yes, and I think we will find out through intelligence. And I did hear some reporting earlier today as well, talking about how the Iranians had started digging new sites for nuclear development. Of course, they still retain the technological know-how. So for them to move on, redevelop those sites, of course, that will take time. But again, stopping their nuclear ambitions, they still have uranium that has been enriched. So targeting those specific areas was really important. Again, making sure that the military targets were taken out. You've heard the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, talking about sinking their Navy, which posed a threat to us as well. All of that extremely important in this operation. And again, so thankful for the leadership that we have seen with President Donald Trump, as well as Admiral Bradley Cooper, who is the commander of Central Command, who cares a lot about the men and women serving in that region, as well as making sure that the threats that are posed to our homeland are negated.
You can see this situation from a couple of different ways because of your career in the military, and then, of course, now as a United States Senator. There is, as you know, disagreement about what role, if any, Congress should have in decision making. How do you view that? When does Congress get involved, if at all, in a situation like this? Or is it purely for a president, and particularly this president, to decide how to handle?
Yes, we have not declared war on Iran. That would be the constitutional authority of the United States Congress. But the president is the commander in chief, and the Constitution clearly states that. And I do believe that this operation is clearly within his authority. We have seen this, and I'm sorry, folks. We hear from the Democrats; they're all up in arms about this.
But you have
We have
Republicans
seen,
too, though.
yes, all across the spectrum. But I am sorry, those same voices that are the loudest when it comes to President Trump, where were they when President Obama was making strikes? Where were they when President Clinton was making strikes? And in the last administration, we saw this under President Joe Biden as well. But oddly, it's President Trump that they're striking out against. So we have seen this. The last declared war under Congress's authority was World War II. We have engaged in a lot of very long operations, whether it's Korea, whether it was Vietnam, certainly during the global war on terrorism, but all in America's interests. So what I will hear from the left and from some of our Republicans is that we shouldn't be engaged in endless wars. Folks, we're less than a week into this. This is not an endless war. There are major differences. We do not see ground troops, conventional forces going into Iran. What we are doing is approaching from the air. So whether that's by sea or by delivery systems in the air, we are targeting military targets in Iran. And again, I think this is for the good of the safety of the United States of America, but it should provide a greater, stable, and prosperous Middle East as well. And that's why we see so many of our Arab partners, not just Israel, but the Arab partners through the Middle East joining us in these operations because they know the threat that Iran has posed to their own neighborhood, but then also the threat it poses to us, even across a sea.
Can you explain to people who don't have a military background what is the difference in our actions now versus if Congress declared war? And I appreciate that you pointed out that it's been decades since we've had an official declaration. What's the difference?
Well, the technical difference is really just that Congress is engaged and has come together in a bipartisan way to say we're authorizing this as a war. But very little difference. If you look at the global war on terrorism, certainly members of Congress were very supportive, but it wasn't officially declared. So the president can continue with operations. Now, he does have to brief Congress, and he has briefed, his representatives have briefed the Gang of Eight as required. There was notification done within 2 days of those actions. We will receive a briefing at large in the House and in the Senate today. But beyond that, then the president can operate, moving out to 90 days. But hopefully it doesn't extend beyond that. If it does, I expect that they will continue to brief Congress.
And again, as a career military member, you can understand this very well. When we do something like this, there can be American sacrifice, and there has,
Yes.
as we've lost some folks who were part of this. How do you relate to the American people that sacrifice is unfortunately necessary when you're dealing with a threat like this?
Dave, it is the awful realities of engaging an adversary. And we have lost 6 souls so far in this operation. And my thoughts and prayers obviously go out to those family members, the loved ones of those individuals. But it is the reality when we are in conflict. We know that sometimes there will be those that make that ultimate sacrifice. But what I would emphasize to all of those in those units, those families, all of our states and communities, is that this is a very noble sacrifice, and that this mission, this operation, will bring greater safety to the American people infinitely. And that we are seeing the course of history changed through these operations. Quite literally, one of those Arab leaders that I spoke to over the weekend said, This is a brand new book. This is the first chapter in the book on peace. And they have seen Iran as a threat for so long. And so our sons and daughters are bringing greater peace to the world. If we can stay the course and engage in a thoughtful manner and work with the leaders in this region, we will see less of a threat, not just today to the United States of America, but well into the future.
You are privy as a member of Congress that you will be briefed on a lot of details that can't be released publicly. Is it in your knowledge, in your gut, that it is possible to contain this so that this does not become a prolonged conflict, war, whatever you want to call this, in a more regional way where we have all these others, several other countries involved in this as well? How do we stop this from really becoming worse than it is?
I think if we think back to Operation Desert Storm and follow on actions, that was a very contained war. And the reason I believe that it was that shock and awe. We went in with all of America's might, and the Iraqis folded very quickly. I think we need to see that same level of effort. We are all in, all at once, swift action. Do not let up. Make sure that the Iranian leadership is brought to its knees and that they understand their military is decimated. And if we can reach that culminating point to where they are in full surrender and acknowledge we will not do nuclear capabilities, won't fund terrorist proxies, and we won't be developing ballistic missiles, I think we have a chance at that containment, as you said. But we have to be all in. This is not something you can just do a strike here and there. We literally have to engage as fast and furious as we can right now. And we know that the sacrifice is there. We've seen it already with the loss of those 6 individuals, but we can't let up now. We have to make sure that we end it. And I've heard that from so many of our partners as well, is that we're all in with you. We need to end this for once and all.
President Donald Trump has described himself multiple times as a president of peace. Since he has returned to the White House, he has authorized military strikes on Iran, Iraq, Yemen, Somalia, and boats that have been going through the Caribbean. That is Inside Iowa Politics for this week.